When people think about black wealth, they picture loud success, viral moments, fast money, overnight wins. But in North Carolina, the richest black men built power a different way. Here, wealth shows up in NBA franchises and billion-dollar brand deals, in media companies sold to corporate giants, in banking corridors, research hubs, real estate, healthcare systems, and ownership stakes most people never see. Some of this money was forged on the court, some in the studio. Most of it was built quietly, through patience, leverage, and control. This isn't a list about who's trending. It's about who owns their name, their work, their assets, and their future. These are the richest black men connected to North Carolina, not because they were the loudest in the room, but because they understood the long game. And once you see how they built it, you'll realize real power has been hiding in plain sight the whole time. Let's get into it. At number 1 stands Michael Jordan. But to understand why he sits alone at the summit, you have to look past the banners and rings and trace where his wealth truly began. Everyone knows the ending. Jordan, the billionaire. Few understand the quiet, intentional climb that made it inevitable. From the start, Jordan moved differently. Long before ownership papers and boardrooms, he treated himself not as a player, but as an asset. That mindset took shape in Wilmington, North Carolina, in a middle-class home where discipline outweighed talent. At the University of North Carolina, fame arrived. But more importantly, he learned structure, patience, and how systems reward those who wait. Those lessons became his blueprint. Because Jordan didn't build his fortune on basketball. He built it on leverage. That perspective reshaped everything. His brand wasn't rented out through endorsements. It was positioned like equity. Air Jordan didn't pay him to speak. It paid him to participate. Staying with Nike for decades turned his name into a compounding engine, growing steadily and silently, like interest stacking while the world replayed highlights. This is why contracts alone could never explain his wealth. Jordan knew the salary ceiling was real, so instead of chasing fast deals, he locked into long-term upside. One choice, to stay the course, triggered decades of growth that pushed his net worth to roughly $3.8 billion, elevating him into a rare class of athlete owners. Then came ownership. Returning to North Carolina to buy into the Charlotte Bobcats wasn't glamorous. The team struggled, doubts followed. But ownership revealed a deeper truth. Teams gain value even when they don't win. Scarcity works. Time works. When Jordan sold his controlling stake in 2023 at a multi-billion-dollar valuation, he crossed into another tier. Wealth no longer tied to performance, but to control. By keeping a minority stake, he ensured the engine kept running without him touching the wheel. This isn't a basketball story. It's a lesson in patience, discipline, and timing. Michael Jordan didn't become the richest black man tied to North Carolina because he played harder. He became the richest because he built smarter, owning his name, waiting while others rushed, and placing himself where value grows even while he sleeps. Jordan didn't just rise. He built the framework others are now following. Second on the list is Robert L. Johnson. To grasp his significance, rewind to an era when black ownership at the top of American business was nearly invisible. In the late 90s, the ceiling wasn't just low, it felt welded shut, like glass reinforced with steel. At the center of Johnson's ascent was black entertainment television, not merely a network, but a direct challenge to the system. Built for audiences mainstream media sidelined, BET pushed against an industry that expected black-owned platforms to stay small. National scale wasn't assumed. It was resisted. Most remember the headline. Few remember how improbable it was to reach it. When Viacom acquired BET in 2001, the deal did more than crown America's first black billionaire. It reset the rules. Johnson's wealth wasn't symbolic. It was structural proof that black-owned companies could scale, attract serious capital, and exit on equal footing. Like a fault line cracking open, it shifted the business landscape beneath our feet. The billion-dollar moment didn't linger, and that's the lesson. Wealth moves, influence stays. Through divorce, philanthropy, and reinvestment, Johnson's net worth settled around $600 to $700 million. Not a collapse, a redeployment of capital. He kept building. In 2002, Johnson led the return of pro basketball to Charlotte, becoming the first black majority owner of a major U.S. sports franchise, placing North Carolina squarely in the story of black economic power. Then came a rare handoff. In 2010, he sold the majority stake to Michael Jordan, one black owner passing a franchise to another, like a baton exchanged mid-stride, where media wealth and brand power briefly overlapped. Johnson's legacy isn't about clinging to billionaire lists, it's about expanding what ownership can do, to build, exit, reinvest, and clear more runway for those behind him. Without his footsteps in Charlotte, the path Jordan later walked would have been narrower and far harder to see. Number 3 on the list isn't a person, it's a force. A quiet class of black private equity investors and real estate developers rooted in Charlotte and the Research Triangle. This isn't celebrity money or brand wealth. It belongs to people who measure success in acreage, contracts, and decades, not applause. Most people pass their assets every day without noticing. Distribution centers tucked off interstates, mixed-use developments rising at city edges like steel shorelines, warehouses feeding supply chains, medical office parks anchored to hospital systems, large commercial buildings leased to national tenants. None of it trends online, and none of it needs to. These properties are built to hum steadily, like engines left running while attention chases noise elsewhere. The real power here is structure. Holdings sit inside private LLCs, development funds, and joint ventures. Deliberately opaque, deliberately durable. That makes the wealth harder to see and harder to break. When one year slows, another opens through refinancing, expansion, or repositioning. This is capital designed to wait, patient enough to absorb downturns, quiet enough to grow unnoticed. Together, this circle controls an estimated $1 to $3+ billion in collective net worth, spread across institutional assets that compound over time. Like bedrock beneath a city, it doesn't shift when sentiment changes. Their method is consistent. Capital flows into physical assets, not public platforms. Those assets sit along transportation corridors, research hubs, banking districts, and healthcare systems, places where demand renews itself. Long-term leases follow, then refinancing, then expansion, rarely liquidation. Each project reinforces the last. Every step trims volatility. Options narrow. Foundations thicken. This is wealth that doesn't rise fast, but it doesn't fall either. It holds position. And in holding, it quietly reshapes North Carolina's economic ground, one deal at a time. Fourth on the list is a kind of wealth most people miss, because it never asks to be noticed. It belongs to a group of black men across North Carolina who built fortunes by staying inside long-established systems. No startups, no viral moments, no personal brands. Instead, they moved patiently through banks, healthcare networks, logistics firms, energy companies, and regional corporations, turning access into ownership, one layer at a time. This wealth doesn't arrive fast. It settles in like sediment, slow, unseen, compressed by time. It often begins with a solid executive role. Promotions come gradually. Stock grants follow. Stock opens boardroom doors. Board seats unlock deferred compensation, profit sharing, and long-term equity. None of it feels dramatic while it's happening. But year after year, the layers stack. Over decades, consistency quietly becomes a fortune. Many in this tier add franchise ownership on top. Multiple locations under master agreements spread across regions. Paired with long-held stock and executive equity, the result is a financial base built to absorb shocks, not chase highs. Markets swing. This structure holds. Net worths here typically range from $50 million to $150 million, with some climbing higher through stock performance, mergers, or strategic exits. Much of the wealth is intentionally protected, parked in trusts, retirement vehicles, restricted stock plans, and real assets. It isn't designed to spike, it's designed to endure, like a foundation poured thick enough to last generations. What sets this group apart is how unglamorous the path looks. In a culture addicted to fast wins, their wealth grows through repetition, restraint, and staying power. It shows what happens when Black executives gain long-term access to decision-making and remain there. North Carolina matters here. Charlotte's banking sector rewards tenure. The Research Triangle rewards deep expertise. The state's logistics corridors reward reliability. Those who entered early and stayed quietly built fortunes that rival far louder forms of wealth. No noise, no rush, just structures that keep holding. Fifth on the list is Stephen Curry, one of the most valuable Black athletes of his generation, with an estimated net worth of around $200 million built through basketball, endorsements, and carefully chosen business ventures. While his career made him a global icon, his understanding of success was shaped much closer to home, in North Carolina. To see why Curry belongs here, you have to rewind. He spent much of his childhood in Charlotte, while his father, Del Curry, played for the Hornets. Those years weren't just about jump shots and practice reps. They were a backstage pass to professional sports. Contracts signed, seasons ending, careers quietly fading. Like watching the tide to learn the ocean, Curry absorbed early that talent alone doesn't last. Planning does. That lesson changed everything. Curry's most important financial move wasn't a three-pointer. It was deciding his success had to extend beyond basketball. His NBA career delivered championships, records, and contracts worth hundreds of millions, but he refused to let his wealth peak with the final whistle. Instead, he turned his name into infrastructure. Long-term partnerships with Under Armour, paired with investments across media, tech, finance, and consumer brands, transformed his brand into a dependable asset, not a fleeting endorsement. His money became layered, no longer tied to a single season or jersey. The progression was deliberate. First came dominance with the Golden State Warriors, bringing global reach and massive contracts. Then came ownership through unanimous media, building film, television, and content platforms designed to earn long after the spotlight shifts. Along the way, he quietly backed startups and emerging brands, widening his footprint without noise. Each move loosened basketball's grip on his future. Each choice lengthened the runway. Stephen Curry's wealth isn't loud, but it's resilient. Like a shooter who knows the arc before the ball ever leaves his hands, he built with the end already in mind. Sixth on the list is J. Cole, an artist whose wealth was built not on hype or speed, but on ownership, restraint, and long-term control. With an estimated net worth of $60 to $70 million, most of his fortune flows from music he owns outright and businesses he personally steers. To see why Cole belongs here, you have to look at where he started and what he refused to rush. He grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Far from the industry pipelines of New York or Los Angeles, there were no shortcuts, no built-in access. What he developed instead was a firm belief in ownership of his lyrics, his sound, and eventually his decisions. That belief proved more valuable than any single hit. Cole entered the industry when most artists were giving up control just to get noticed. He chose the opposite. While touring relentlessly and building a devoted following, he held on to his masters and publishing. That one decision reshaped how his money works. His income doesn't rely on viral moments. It arrives steadily through streaming, licensing, and royalties, like a clock that keeps time whether anyone is watching or not. No spikes, no silence, just durability. By moving patiently and resisting rushed deals, Cole kept control of his catalog and his timing. From there, he expanded with intention through Dreamville, turning it into a working ecosystem rather than a vanity label. Releases, touring, festivals, publishing, and selective partnerships all feed the same structure, each piece reinforcing the next. Every move widened the base without adding noise. Growth stayed measured. Ownership stayed intact. J. Cole's wealth doesn't shout. It settles in, like roots grown deep enough to survive any season. Seventh on the list is Chris Paul, an NBA lifer whose wealth was built with precision rather than flash. With an estimated net worth of around $160 million, his fortune comes from long-term planning, contracts, endorsements, and disciplined investments stacked patiently over time. Before the resume, there's the setting. Paul grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and later starred at Wake Forest. Immersed in a basketball culture that prized control, leadership, and durability over highlight shots. That mindset followed him into the league and into how he handled money. Long before the game loosened its grip, Paul was already planning the next innings. On the court, he didn't just earn, he stabilized. Across nearly 2 decades in the NBA, Paul signed multiple max contracts and remained among the league's top earners, surpassing $300 million in salary alone. But the real advantage came from what he saw behind the curtain. As president of the NBA Players Association for almost a decade, Paul gained rare insider access to how leagues, owners, and institutions protect and grow wealth. He wasn't guessing how power moved. He was sitting at the table. That exposure reshaped his financial instincts, turning intuition into strategy. The progression was clean. Credibility led to contracts. Contracts brought steady income and endorsements. His union role placed him inside negotiations where ownership thinks long, not loud. When he began investing, media, sports technology, consumer brands, selective ownership stakes, every move was deliberate. Nothing rushed. Each layer reinforced the next, like bricks laid for permanence. Chris Paul represents one of the smoothest transitions from performance to position. He didn't chase trends or attempt a dramatic reinvention. He built earning power first, influence second, and ownership last. His wealth works in layers: salary, leadership, endorsements, and equity, interlocking into something resilient. And though his money now moves through New York, Los Angeles, and Silicon Valley, North Carolina still anchors the foundation. Winston-Salem remains part of the frame, giving his wealth a grounded, settled feel. Less like a spike, more like a structure built to stand. Eighth on the list is George Fraser, a businessman whose wealth was built the slow way, through relationships, access, and long-term positioning rather than speed or spectacle. His net worth, estimated between $15 and $25 million, didn't arrive in a breakout moment. It accumulated, patiently, over decades. Fraser's path looks nothing like the usual playbook. He didn't rise through sports, music, or tech. He built his career in rooms where credibility matters more than timing, and trust outlasts trends. Early on, he understood something most people miss. Proximity to decision-makers has value, and that value grows when handled carefully. Long before networking went digital and performative, Fraser was building private, intentional business communities. Through ventures like Success Quest and later FraserNet, he created real-world spaces where executives, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and institutions could connect. He wasn't selling fame, he was selling access, insight, and trust. That kind of value doesn't spike like a viral moment. It repeats. And when nurtured, it compounds, like interest earned on relationships instead of capital. Fraser positioned himself not as the headline, but as the connector. That role opened doors to publishing, private events, advisory work, and long-term partnerships. Instead of betting on one oversized deal, he stacked relationships year after year. Income became steady, predictable, spread across consulting, intellectual property, and strategic connections. Each layer reinforced the next, creating stability instead of volatility. George Fraser represents a form of wealth that's often overlooked because it's quiet. It wasn't inherited. It wasn't explosive. It was built by staying inside leadership circles long enough to understand how power moves and how relationships hold value when cultivated over time. North Carolina plays a meaningful role in that story. His work has long intersected with the state's black business networks, particularly in Charlotte, Durham, and Raleigh. While his influence reaches nationally, those communities helped his ideas about collective leverage and ownership take root. Slowly, firmly, like something built to last. Ninth on the list is a class of black business owners in North Carolina, whose wealth moves quietly beneath everyday life. They aren't public figures, and their money isn't tied to fame or personal brands. It's anchored to essentials: land, infrastructure, healthcare, and services that keep running no matter what's trending. To see why this group matters, look at what they actually control: dialysis centers and senior care facilities, construction firms and regional subcontractors, trucking fleets, waste services, and logistics companies embedded in hospital systems, city operations, and large institutions. These businesses don't go viral, but they don't stop either. When people need care, transport, or maintenance, these companies are already in position, like gears turning beneath the floor. Most started with usefulness, not attention. One contract led to another. Maintenance became management. Transport expanded into full logistics. Over time, labor gave way to ownership. As North Carolina grew, around Raleigh-Durham, Greensboro, and the outer edges of Charlotte, these firms grew alongside hospitals, universities, and new development. When the state expanded, this tier quietly made sure the work could happen. The value here comes from being necessary. First, they provided services cities and institutions depended on. That dependence led to long-term contracts. Those contracts funded equipment, land, vehicles, and workforce growth. Eventually, assets replaced effort. Ownership replaced labor. Each renewal cycle resets the income, allowing the business to continue without hype or rapid expansion. Like a tide that returns on schedule, the money renews itself. This is some of the heaviest and most stable wealth on the list. Individual net worths often range from $10 million to $40 million, with most of the value tied up in land, equipment, fleets, and long-term service agreements. It's not wealth built for flashy exits. It's built to remain needed. What makes this tier easy to overlook is exactly what makes it resilient. These owners don't control attention, but they control access to services cities rely on every day. Their money moves through payrolls, vendors, and municipal contracts, while trend-driven fortunes spike and fade. This kind of wealth resets and continues. Quiet, essential, built to hold. The final spot on this list doesn't belong to a single name, but to a rising class of black real estate developers and healthcare operators spread across North Carolina. Their names rarely surface in rankings, yet their assets quietly place them among the state's true decision-makers. Their wealth doesn't chase attention. It lives in apartment buildings, medical offices, care facilities, and essential services people rely on every day. They operate where growth meets necessity. Housing developments rise just beyond city limits, like stakes planted ahead of expansion. Medical offices appear beside growing hospital systems. Assisted living centers and clinics are built before demand fully arrives. These operators don't move fast. They move early, then wait. Positioning matters more than speed. Much of their wealth is hidden in plain sight. It's scattered across partnerships, family entities, and layered companies. Apartment complexes, healthcare facilities, land, equipment, and long-term service contracts that hold value even when they're hard to measure. Net worths typically range from $20 million to $80 million, with some exceeding $100 million once everything is counted. This money isn't meant to spike, it's built to hold. What strengthens these fortunes is inevitability. Population growth, healthcare expansion, and infrastructure investment eventually catch up and do the work. Like gravity, demand settles where preparation already exists. Most of these operators started inside the systems they now own. They worked in hospitals before controlling facilities, managed construction before acquiring land, ran services before holding the contracts. Then, the shift happened. Time stopped being traded for income. Platforms replaced roles. From there, assets began to stack. Property, operations, long-term agreements, each reinforcing the next as growth arrived on schedule. Quietly, predictably, built not for attention, but for permanence. When you line these stories up, one truth stands out. Black wealth in North Carolina isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in ownership, land, businesses, contracts, teams, ideas, quiet assets doing loud work. Some of these men became icons. Others never chased attention at all. But every one of them understood the same thing. Fame fades. Ownership holds. So if you're trying to understand where real power lives, don't just watch what's loud. Watch what lasts. Because what's built quietly today is what shapes tomorrow.